I said going into the break there, I think it was probably the worst weekend for the technology since it came in.
Worst.
We've had an apology, no other way to put it, from the PGMOL this afternoon. They're the group in charge of Premier League referees, and they've admitted their chief officer, Howard Webb, recently appointed, has contacted Arsenal and Brighton to acknowledge, in their words, significant errors, both incidents which were due to human error, they say, and related to the analysis of offside situations, are being thoroughly reviewed by the PGMOL. Now, on one hand, I respect the fact that Howard Webb has come clean and that they're being transparent. On the other, so tight at the top of the table. If Arsenal miss out on their first championship in 2 decades by 2 points, I don't think Howard Webb's apology is really going to hold much weight for them. The same for Brighton, who I think going into this weekend certainly believed they were contenders for a top 4 place. If they miss out on a Champions League place or even a European spot by a couple of points, again, the apology will mean little. And big question marks have to be asked now, because if you look at the instances this weekend, I mean, this memorandum that's been put out by the PGMOL doesn't mention the incident at the end of the West Ham-Chelsea game when Thomas Souček clearly saves the ball. I think Graham Potter, tongue-in-cheek, said, well, that's what the goalkeeper's there for. That's a handball. That's a penalty. I'm sorry, the explanation given that he was leaning with the arm to break his fall is absolute nonsense. You two have played the game. Thomas Souček knew exactly what he was trying to do.
Good save. It's an outrageous decision.
You've got the Mario Lemina red card. I mean, what has he been booked for? Second time around.
Ridiculous. That one, and you heard him come out saying it, that there was 2 players that run up to the referee first, and then he chose.
Who was it? It was Neves. Neves said that in his interview.
He said, then if you're going to book anybody...
Because he was the 3rd player to run up to me.
So, and then you send
He weren't even running. He kind of walked as if, like, just questioning, yellow card immediately.
But, sorry, but it comes back to, and regardless, we're going to go through all this. And
well, the other 2 that I would just want to touch on, you've got Harvey Barnes, appeared to be onside. He had a goal ruled out. Even in that Palace-Brighton game, there was a challenge from Alexis McAllister early on that probably was worthy of a red card. Certainly VAR could have intervened there. And that's before you get on the fact that in one instance, the VAR is so obsessed with whether one Brentford player is offside that he's actually failed to spot there is a Brentford player offside. But by the way, pal, it's not the one you're looking at. And then in that Palace-Brighton game, they've drawn the lines in the wrong places. I mean, this is the biggest, best, richest league in the world. And you are making basic errors like that. Howard Webb, and I'm a big fan of Howard Webb's, sort it out. Either get rid of the technology once and for all, or get a decent set of officials who know how to use it, because this is making the Premier League a laughingstock.
But again, technology is still down to the referees, the officials. It's the officials that are making the decisions. The technology's there to work, and it's, again, we haven't really spoken about VAR in a while to like we used to at the beginning of the season. But it comes down to it was the officials that forgot to draw the line. Which, again, when you hear that, you've got to be like, the first thing you do is draw the line. So, and then it's the officials that sent off the 3rd player it comes down to, it's the officiating that needs to be able to go down and get better training on one, and that for me is the problem. Not the technology is just a byproduct of trying to help the game, but at the end of the day, be it the referee on the pitch or the referee back at Stanley Park, it's still a man or a person that's making a decision. So it comes down to better officiating.
And I don't want to pick on individuals, but I will pick on an individual. Lee Mason, who was one of the VAR operatives at the weekend. He's been making mistakes on the pitch and now in the VAR room for years. When are the PGMOL going to realise that Lee Mason is simply not up to the job? You speak to anybody, any of the 20 Premier League clubs, and I bet not one of them would disagree with that assessment.
Yeah, I agree. It's not good enough. In all honesty, and as well, look, fair play, Howard Webb, you've come out and you've apologised. It's not good enough. An apology is not good enough. When you get to the end of the season, as we said, if Arsenal miss out by 2 points for the title, if Brighton miss out on 2 points for top 4 or European football, an apology is just not good enough. It doesn't cut it. Financial, like the financial losses that these teams could get, and it's bought in. It was brought in to stop this. Yeah. To stop. It's made it worse. Yeah. And it's not every week. It's nearly every game, every match. There's an incident. There's an issue, and referees must start sweating when it says VAR check. What have I done wrong? I don't think it's helping. I think some referees, not Lee Mason, because I do agree with you. I don't think he's up to standard, but some referees are being thrown under the bus really by the VAR. I honestly do. And as you said, Bayo, and I agree with it, it's not the technology. So I've said by the VAR, but it's the VAR officials.
Yeah.
How can you forget to draw a line? That's the first thing you do is draw a line. And you go back to as far as you can, you check every incident, and you miss that.
But sorry, in the sense where even though we say it's not the technology, I do exactly that. I think the technology has all of a sudden, whatever the reason, has not confidence, or because they can go back and check
it's a get out of jail free card.
So therefore, they're not actually taking the onuses on themselves and just saying, well, look, they made a mistake, X, Y, and Z, but because it keeps going back, as either they don't make a decision and then they make another referee the game that's not even there, that don't know how to feel. And we've played the game, and like you say, if you see a challenge or an incident in slow motion, X, Y, it always does look different than when you see it at first hand. I just feel like the technology has brought on more problems than what it's meant to solve. And that's the thing with VAR, in my opinion.
It seemed to be that they've sat in a meeting before this week's games and thought, how can we annoy everyone even more than we can with VAR? It was like it was comical. It was that bad that nearly every match this weekend had an issue, had a VAR decision go wrong. Okay, the Harvey Barnes one, very, very close, but we've seen those before, so you can kind of accept them. I agree. I think the McAllister challenge, I thought that was a red card.
Well, apparently
when I see it.
That was checked by VAR, and they decided that there wasn't enough evidence to overturn.
So again,
decision.
Another official making a human error. So it's not technology. It's nothing to do with that. The technology's there. It's giving them the license to go and look at it again. But they're getting the original decision wrong, and then the decision when they're looking at it wrong.
And of course, when you make decisions, there's always repercussions, and that's be it players, be it managers. Players act or say something different, there's a repercussion. With referees, it's actually now kind of hard. So you say Lee Mason, it's been poor, but then they're like a team. So if he don't make the decision, he says, well, look, the people back at Stockley Park can look at it, and they don't make the decision. So how can you reprimand anybody, because they're like, well, everybody missed it. So it does go back to Howard Webb to say, look, the teams and the decision makings as a collective is not good enough, because that's what it goes down to. Because you cannot, how can you reprimand or there be any repercussions to these referees?
Well, what are the punishments? What are the punishments? We've seen.
Well, the punishment is that if you make a mistake in a Premier League game, then you quite often end up getting demoted for a week or two to the EFL. I mean, is that fair on you guys?
Totally disrespectful to the EFL. They don't want them. They don't want them down there. They don't want those officials that get everything wrong. We've seen officials get decisions wrong, and the next week they're in the VAR room getting it wrong in the VAR room as well. Following week, they're out on the pitch again getting it wrong.